We have multiple announcements today. We're going to start with some announcements of two new lawsuits, and then we're going to move to an update on the Christian County indictment. Healthcare is a basic human right. Every Kentuckian deserves to be able to go to the doctor when they're sick and for it not to break the bank. The health of our people is also one of the major systematic challenges facing Kentucky. For years, Kentucky is ranked near the bottom of so many national statistics. We've led the nation in cancer-related deaths and ranked dismally in heart disease, smoking rates, diabetes, lung cancer, and so many other chronic conditions. Over the past 20 years, we've seen drug-related deaths skyrocket due to highly addictive opioid painkillers. But there is hope. The creation of Connect and the expansion of Medicaid provided coverage for over 500,000 Kentuckians, many of which had never had health care before. And studies show that increase in coverage is making us healthier. We've seen colon cancer screening rates jump 230%, and the death rate from the disease reduced by 27%. I am determined that we keep making progress. Just last month, I secured a major win in our fight for health care. We won a federal lawsuit that will protect coverage for pre-existing conditions for Kentuckians on individual and small group health care insurance plans. We are still fighting two other national lawsuits where the federal government and others are trying to tear away coverage for pre-existing conditions. They're trying to reallow discrimination where women could be charged more than men for the same policy. They're trying to reinstitute lifetime caps, and they're trying to do away with the mandate that mental health be treated the same as physical health. Finally, they're trying to rip away expanded Medicaid entirely, which ends up funding almost all of rural health care in Kentucky, providing over $15 billion over the next several years. But coverage is only half the battle. The other half is that health care is far too expensive. These costs are driven by the high and inflated cost of prescription drugs. Many Kentuckians have to choose and make choices that they should never have to make, deciding whether to get their prescription or keep the lights on, whether to put food on the table, pay their power bill, or get that necessary medicine they deserve to live. No one should have to make those decisions. Pharmaceutical companies have made billions upon billions at the expense of the health of our state, our nation, and the health of our people. Today, I'm here to announce further steps we're taking to ensure the well-being and health of our people. First announcement. This morning, I, along with 43 attorneys general, filed a civil lawsuit alleging Teva Pharmaceuticals and 19 of the nation's generic drug manufacturing conspired to inflate and fix the price of more than 100 generic drugs. The multi-state complaints marks our third lawsuit against Teva, and the investigation into the industry is ongoing and expanding. The alleged schemes outlined in this lawsuit led to increased drug prices affecting the health insurance market, taxpayer programs like Medicaid and Medicare, and Kentuckians who have paid too much. Our complaint alleges the drug manufacturers violated both state and federal antitrust laws by orchestrating a price-fixing scheme, and the lawsuit names 15 senior executives who oversaw sales, marketing, pricing, and operations. The drugs include tablets, creams, beta blockers, antibiotics, antidepressants, and anti-inflammatory drugs, among others. As a result of this alleged conduct, some drug prices were increased as much as 1,000%. A calculation by Teva's marketing director estimated a, quote, net upside, end quote, of the drug price increases of nearly $1 billion per quarter. These billions of dollars of profit were made at the expense of our Kentucky families. It is unacceptable, and our coalition of attorneys general are going to stop it. Our second announcement is that I'm announcing a second lawsuit, this one filed by Kentucky alone. Today, we filed suit against the three largest insulin manufacturers, who make up 96% of the world's insulin: They are Novo Nordisk, Sanofi Aventis, and Eli Lilly. We sued them for deceptive and unconscionable pricing that is harming Kentuckians with diabetes who rely on insulin for their very survival. The complaint, which was filed today in Franklin Circuit Court, alleges the manufacturers have violated the law in their increases to the price of insulin to the point that is causing significant financial hardship or specifically harming the health of our Kentucky families. Diabetes is a serious medical issue that harms the health and well-being of far too many Kentuckians, and the number of folks with diabetes is exploding. According to a 2017 CDC study, Kentucky had the 7th highest rate of diabetes in the country. And the American Diabetes Association states that approximately 560,000 of our Kentuckians, nearly 15.3% of our population, have diabetes. Every year, an additional 135,000 new cases of diabetes are diagnosed in Kentucky. That means that this issue is so important to just about every single family across this state. Insulin, as a treatment to diabetes, has been around since the 1920s, and its discoverers won a Nobel Prize. Those developers donated the patent of their insulin drug for $1 because they felt it'd be unethical to profit from life-saving medication and wanted everyone with the disease to have access to it. This intent has been lost in our modern pharmaceutical marketplace. Over the last several years, the price of insulin has skyrocketed, despite the fact that there have been no recent changes that would justify any increase to it whatsoever. Our lawsuit alleges that since 2008, the defendant companies have increased the price of insulin at least 10 times, including more than doubling it within the last decade alone, despite the fact that the manufacturing cost of insulin has stayed low. Usually, the manufacturing cost of insulin is less than $7 per vial, but the wholesale price has jumped to nearly $300 per vial, and the price paid by Kentuckians who are hit the hardest can exceed $1,000 a month. The vast majority of Kentuckians and Americans simply do not have that type of money. We believe that the evidence will show that these companies have increased prices to compete with one another in order to be more favorable or obtain more favorable placement with pharmacy benefit managers, or PBMs. Here's how the scheme that we're alleging works. PBMs are companies that manage prescription drug benefits for health plans and self-insured employers. You may remember that we launched an investigation into PBMs from this office not long ago. The defendant drug companies negotiate the net price of their insulin products with the PBMs by beginning at the list price and then offering rebates. If you put us on or give us favorable placement with your clients, we will offer you a rebate. In theory, the rebates are supposed to be passed to the PBM's clients to lower their overall cost, but that's not how it works. And oftentimes the PBM pocket a large part, sometimes even all, of these rebates. The result of this scheme is because these insulin makers want to increase their rebates, what do? They increase their prices. To offer the greatest rebate as compared to others, they continue to increase the price of insulin despite the fact it doesn't cost any more to make. But many individuals end up paying the inflated price, don't get the benefit of any rebate, and it leads to rationing or sometimes even dying because they're not getting enough of the insulin they need. Let's talk a little bit about those who are harmed. Kentuckians without insurance, folks that would pay the inflated price that the companies have increased just so that they can offer rebates. But those without insurance are asked to pay the full price. Approximately 5.4% of Kentuckians had no health insurance in 2017. That's more than 240,000 people. That's something I desperately want to change, but we have to understand that the reality right now is that those 240,000 folks without coverage would pay that $300 plus price per vial of insulin. Second group, Kentuckians with high deductible health plans. Over 180,000 Kentuckians are now covered by high deductible insurance plans, according to the Foundation for Healthy Kentucky. Those are the plans where you pay for the first X thousands of dollars before your insurance plan kicks in. The problem with that, you don't get the benefit of any of the PBM's rebate or lowered cost. You end up paying for your, some people call it out-of-pocket deductible, the higher rate. Third group, Kentuckians who are Medicare Part D beneficiaries. According to CMS, there are more than 670,000 Kentuckians with Medicare Part D coverage in 2017. But because of that donut hole, when their prescription costs reach $3,820 until the costs exceed $5,100, they will pay a coinsurance 25% for brand name insulin that is subject to that larger list price. So for those on Medicare Part D that are already living in fixed income, this practice results in significantly higher costs in that donut hole where they have to pay for it out of pocket. And there are so many Kentuckians who pay coinsurance, whose drug benefit payments are based on a percentage of that list price. We are seeking damages and civil penalties from the defendants for their deceptive and unconscionable actions. There is no justification for pricing a life-saving, life-sustaining medication like insulin beyond the ability for people to afford it. Remember, this is a drug whose developers patented it for $1 because they thought those who needed it to survive shouldn't be priced out of their own lives. It is not moral, it is not ethical, and it is illegal what these companies have done. Drug prices are out of control, and this is another action we're taking to try to rein them in. I'm doing what I can as Attorney General to stop this practice for our people, for the future of our Commonwealth, and for every single family that has a member suffering from diabetes. We'll now take questions on this announcement, these two lawsuits, and then we will move to an update on the Christian County indictment.
General, do you know if any other state has sued these insulin makers?
Minnesota has. I believe we're the second, but then there are separate class actions on behalf of defendants.
And where's the federal lawsuit filed?
The class action would it be in where? In New Jersey.
When you mentioned that there are 15 senior executives mentioned in that headline, what penalties would they face? Would they face fines or jail time?
Well, that lawsuit is a civil lawsuit. There are other criminal proceedings related to this general topic that are also occurring and moving through a joint investigation. But those would be very significant and substantial fines for antitrust conduct. When you boil it down, what our multiple actions out of Connecticut say is that the reason for the first time in our history that generic prices are going up is because these companies are conspiring to do it, that they are talking and they are increasing our prices when the way the market works is every generic that comes on the market should decrease prices. That you have a brand and it's at a higher price. Then the first generic comes on the market and it should significantly cut into that price. But then when the third generic comes onto the market, it ought to cut the price down significantly. That's the way that our laws are supposed to encourage pharmaceutical companies to make a new drug, but then ultimately lower the costs of that over a certain period of time. Our allegations are that they're violating federal antitrust law through greed, so that they can make more money even after the system should have already compensated anyone and everyone who came on the market.
Is the Minnesota lawsuit against insulin makers, is that still pending? Has it been adjudicated?
Leanne, is that in the? Okay. Leanne Applegate from our Consumer Protection Division, who does a great job.
Anything interesting in the opioid lawsuits?
The opioid lawsuits are continuing. The update there is that we have defeated every argument, every motion. The most recent one was from Teva that they filed. Every argument to try to get it dismissed. We've won, and that's critically important because these lawsuits at least provide the possibility of having every dollar we need for treatment, for prevention, and for recovery. And my job is to make sure that we are aggressive enough to where we don't sit behind New York or California simply because they have more people. We have been devastated, and it's my job to make sure that we are first.
Who's the Fayette Circuit Judge that dismissed the motion?
Crystal, can you grab my notes for the Christian County, the bullet points? I think they're still on my desk. That will be very helpful for the second part. Oh, nope, I've got them here. All right, are we ready? Let's move to the second piece. And John, if you want to join me, and Deputy Miller.
Thank you, General.
Right, you want to come? You make me look short, though.
Sorry.
Thank you all. We're now going to provide an update on the Christian County indictment and where things are. I'm joined today by John Heck from the Office of the Attorney General Special Prosecutions Division. He, along with Barbara Whaley, will be prosecuting this case, along with Deputy Chris Miller from the Christian County Sheriff's Office. Just to give you a brief background, we secured an indictment in Christian County on Friday. It had 9 separate counts, 3 counts of murder, 3 counts of tampering with physical evidence, 1 count of arson, 1 count of attempted arson, and 1 count of burglary. The indictment was sealed until the arrest, which was made early Saturday morning in Louisville. I wanted to make sure, as we're here today, that we were able to recognize those that have worked so hard. The Christian County Sheriff's Office has played an integral role. The Kentucky State Police, who aren't here today, our Office of Special Prosecutions, in the arrest itself, the U.S. Marshals and LMPD also played very important roles, and we would not be here today but for their work. Just with a brief background, I remember 2 years ago in this very room, 2 of the decedents, their son Matt, came in to talk to us. He was suffering and is suffering from the trauma that anyone who loses parents, especially this way, would have suffered. And he asked for help. He knew people were working hard on the case, but he asked for our help to make sure that it wouldn't be stalled, and he was worried that he wouldn't see justice for his parents. And they don't prepare you for that as AG, to look across the table at somebody who has lost so much. But we told him that day that we would do everything we could, that we would be in contact with anyone and everyone. There were multiple law enforcement groups that were investigating. And out of that came a request from the Christian County Commonwealth's attorney that we take over the prosecution side of the case. I can tell you that everyone involved worked 2 very hard years to make this indictment happen. So here is an update on information we can provide. The arraignment date in this case will be May 22nd at 11 a.m. Central Time. A copy of the indictment we have today, and we can share, we have today, and it can also be requested through the Christian County Circuit Clerk's Office. That office will be the proper place to seek any ongoing public records, including the arrest warrant, which will become a public record. At this time, Martin is located in the Christian County Detention Center and is being held with no bond. At least the initial proceedings will all be in Christian County. We're not able to comment on the evidence in this case. I know there's a lot of questions about it, but at this stage, we cannot do that. That information must be presented to the defense, and it will be. But we always appreciate our partners and those in the media that helped inform Kentucky families, but we do ask for privacy for those victims and their families that do not want to speak to the press. The amount of trauma is difficult to fathom of someone who has lost someone in the brutal manner that occurred here. And so we are taking any requests and passing them on. But at this moment, to our understanding, all, if not most, of the family members are not speaking to the press. So with that, we'll take any questions.
Can you say, generally how did this break for you?
We can't talk about any specific piece of evidence, but I can say that I believe it was hard work and perseverance and being incredibly thorough, and that every single group that participated deserves credit for that.
Was it a specific piece of evidence, or was it the culmination of several years of work?
I can't comment on the evidence, but we believe that this will be a very compelling case.
Did you get a tip?
Did I what?
Did you get a tip?
I can't comment on the evidence. That's something that we have to provide first to the
Would you
defense.
say it's more a boots on the ground operation then, rather than say a DNA example right through?
Well, again, that's evidence that I can't comment on, but I don't want to downplay how hard law enforcement and John and our office worked. A lot of times when you have this many different groups that are involved, things can be difficult, but everybody wanted to see justice here. And while an indictment is just an initial stage, and the defendant will have an opportunity to present his case in court, this was one where, after sitting across that table and after 2 years, I hope it brings a little bit of justice and a little bit of relief to those families. Now,
So you can't talk to motive.
we
things like that.
we cannot.
Was he arrested? How long this gentleman's been a suspect?
I don't believe I can address that either on the evidence side.
Was he taken into custody on an actual airplane, or was he in the airport? There's just conflicting
Right.
reports out there.
Let us check on that for you. I can tell you that the method in which he was taken into custody was for the safety both of law enforcement and the general public, ensuring that there was an environment where it could be done safely for all of our folks who were involved.
So he wasn't dragged off the plane as some headlines have indicated.
I don't believe so. No, I can say no. He was not.
How often does your office get asked to take over the prosecution of the case, and in this case in particular, why?
Well, it happens in different ways. Oftentimes, a Commonwealth attorney, because these are felonies, will have a conflict for some reason, or sometimes there's even a resource issue, or it's a core area where we're focused, like the rape kit backlog, where we can bring in extra resources. Sometimes it's the victims themselves that just want maybe a little extra focus, or in their trauma feel that we would offer a good alternative. And my goal is to always listen to the victims. And let's be clear that a victim of a crime like that goes beyond those that were just killed. It scars their family. It scars the community. Pembroke is a small community. And this is something that scars an entire community, if not county. And so listening to, in this instance, the family members made me commit that we would get involved. It's what they needed, it's what they deserved, and we wanted to make sure the system worked for them.
Have you been living in Kentucky on the side?
Most recently living outside of Raleigh, North Carolina.
Do you know when he moved there?
I don't have that information.
Sheriff, can you talk about how tough this case was on your community?
A case like this obviously has a lot of complex issues, a lot of moving parts, a lot of devastation to not only the families that are involved, but also the neighbors and friends of those. So the impact that a case like this has on a community like ours, which is considered a rural community in western Kentucky, is very profound. And it is something that the Christian County Sheriff's Office takes very seriously. We welcome the assistance from the AG's office. We welcome the cooperation that we have with Kentucky State Police and all agencies involved in this investigation that have made it what it is today. We certainly appreciate everything they've done. With the AG's office being brought in, I can respond to that. The more the merrier for us.
Yeah.
The more hands we can have in that process helps us to get to the end, which again is justice for the family of the victims.
What is the reaction now in Christian County? Now that there's been an arrest, is there a bit of relief?
There is a bit of relief. There's also a bit of comprehension. We want to try to make sure that we understand everything that's going on in this process, and also make everybody understand this is going to be a long process. This is a very complex process. So while there is a lot of relief, there is still a lot of apprehension on what proceeds from here on out. And we feel very confident that we're going to be able to do our best. That the AG's office is doing an incredible job, and so that's where we are right now.
And it's important to note how difficult the criminal justice system is on a family. That's why we have victims advocates who do great jobs. And it's important to have victims advocates all over the Commonwealth because there are a number of hearings, more so than the general public thinks, in a criminal case. And there are a lot of steps that you have to take in the criminal justice system because there's a presumption of innocence. And so ensuring that we can walk those families through a process that is hard is something we're very committed to.
Could there be any other charges in this case?
I think at the time we can't comment on that.
Does he have a lawyer? Do you know that person?
I don't have that information yet. And he was just taken into custody yesterday.
Did he go cooperative?
To our understanding, yes.
Did he say anything?
We can't comment on that at this time.
Do you know, does he often fly into Louisville Muhammad Ali Airport as part of his regular?
I don't have that information.
Did he have a clean background for the most part?
I don't think, but because of what we have to hand over to the defense, that we can comment on that at this time. All right. Thank you all very much.